All right.
Okay, it's working.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning. Okay. Thanks for being here, Nick. Really excited to introduce you to this group of awesome people. And maybe I can do a quick introduction of who's here, and then I can introduce them briefly to who Nick is, and then we can get started. Is that okay? Okay, cool. So just quite briefly, I think I mentioned this to Nick, but I'll just repeat again. The students here are currently in batches 1 and 2 of Rocket Academy's bootcamp. And oh yeah, Akira's here. Yeah, Akira's also here. I don't know when you guys last saw each other. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I joined the call earlier, so we spoke just very briefly, and then.
Oh, you were here earlier. Away. And then you went away and you
for 1 minute, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And so most of the students here are in the batches 1 and 2. So they've been learning for the batch 1 students have been learning for almost 4 months-ish. And then the batch 1 students recently started a couple of weeks ago. So there's a good mix of the two. And they're about to be, as soon as they complete or are about to complete Rocket Academy's 6-month bootcamp, they're going to be applying for jobs and going through that same process that you went through however many years ago, 3-4 years ago, after you finish your bootcamp GA in Singapore. And so I think students would love to hear about your experiences during that process, how you went from being a non-coder to becoming a coder through a bootcamp, and then what was the whole process of job searching, and then also not just the job search, but the career progression after that, having come out of a bootcamp. Great, so that's a bit about the profile of our students. A bit about Nick for everyone who's here. Nick was Akira's student, and then not Akira's student. Nick was someone else's student, but then ended up being a teaching assistant with Akira, and then ended up leading his own cohort of GA's coding course as well, doing as a part-time instructor at the time. Nick and I actually met while Nick was working as a software engineer, and we happened to sit right next to each other at a co-working space in Block 71. Where is Block 71? Block 71, yeah, 1 North. Yeah, and that's how we got to know each other. And then Nick actually introduced Akira and me. So the reason why this whole thing is happening is actually because of Nick. So we're quite grateful to Nick for that. Cool. Oh yeah, before coding, Nick studied environmental engineering, environmental studies, which is not really coding related. But then he knew that he enjoyed building products. He tried to do his own startup for a while after he graduated, and he decided that coding was an important skill that he wanted to pick up. And so he did the bootcamp, and since then he's been progressing on his journey as a software engineer. Cool. So I won't steal too much of thunder. I'll let Nick do a short intro, and then we can open it up to questions after that.
Yeah, sure.
Great.
No thunder to be stolen. No thunder. Just a plain old guy that went through the process that you are going through. So hopefully I can bring that across today and just be there as someone who has kind of walked the same paths as you guys. Yeah, I don't know. We can go straight to the Q&A if you don't want to know. Like the Q&A can be questions about my background, what's my current job like, and whatever that you want to ask. I don't really want to do more of an self-intro. Depends on what you want to know. Just let's keep it fluid and use this 1 hour to answer your deepest, most worrying questions.
Yes. Hi Nick, I'll start. I'm Kenrick. I'm from batch 1. So what are you currently doing? I heard you're based in Berlin, and what measures do you take to get there, or what's the process for you, or how do you end up in Berlin rather?
I like to ask questions when people ask me questions. Can I ask, why do you ask this question? What aspect is important to you?
Because I'm actually looking to move to 20 different cities. As in, my life goal is to live in 20 different cities. So far, I lived in 4. Wow. So yeah, so that's why when you're able to make the move to Berlin, I was actually quite interested and quite excited to meet you. Got it.
Got it.
So I'm asking. Yeah.
And which 4 have you gone to already?
I went to a city in Spain, which is Segovia. I lived in Madrid, and also lived in Hong Kong and Singapore.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, 20 countries, cities, and you want to live there? Okay, that's
for at least 6 months. So yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay, I have the same dream as you in a way, like, but much smaller. I just wanted to live abroad for at least a year. That's why I'm in Berlin. When I was at NUS studying environmental studies, I blew my chance to go for exchange. Basically, applied for something that's too out of my league, and my score was just not good enough. So, so I knew right after graduating that I would start a startup because I felt like I needed to do that before I get a nice cushy job that might prevent me from ever doing that. So I did that for 9 months and then stopped doing that because I didn't get anywhere and started a job. And when I was done with that startup phase, I realized that I really need to do this, make this come true, which is to live abroad. My wife and I both really wanted to live abroad for a while. We both feel like Singapore is quite small. We need to go somewhere and just see what the world is like for ourselves. I've been here for a bit more than 1 year now. So to answer your question head on, like what did I do? When I interviewed for the company that I'm working at currently, which I've been at for 2.5 years now, I told them right from the onset that I wanted to move offices. So it was a bit ballsy if you think about it. Like who goes into an interview making demands, right? You should go there and tell them how good you are, not tell them the demands that you have. And I think we should unpack that a little bit. The reason why I felt like I could make demands was because I felt like I was not too bad at being a software engineer. And I mean, like, I'm not excellent. I'm not some 10x engineer. But at my previous job, where I met Kai when I was working in the co-working space, I was doing a lot of software engineering and I learned very, very much in a very short span of time. And I felt like I could do that in basically any company. And I feel like that is valuable to people or to employers. So with that, I had that confidence that I could go up and make a little bit of demands. So cutting the long story short, I basically went for the interview and told them like, hey, it's really important to me that I, in a year's time or so, be like moved to a different office. And I know that you guys have an office in this place and that place. You know, originally I wanted to go to San Francisco. So I told them, I know you have a San Francisco office. Do you think there's a chance you could move me there? And they basically said like, yeah, we can, but it depends on how you perform in your first year. So really the answer is I was lucky I met this company that has offices and is willing to move their employees to different offices. Yeah.
Thank you. So just to summarize and confirm, so you worked in Singapore for a year for the first before moving, right?
In Smartly, yeah, more than a year.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm also from Batch 1. You mentioned that before you got this job at Smartly, you were at another job. And at that job, you had to do things that caused you to level up very quickly in that 1 year. What are some of these things? And are these things that we should be looking out for when we get our first engineering job, software engineering job?
That's a good question. When I graduated, I could see that all my peers, so I did the TA thing, right? So I was a teaching assistant at General Assembly right after graduating from the bootcamp. A lot of my peers have already gone on, peers meaning the people from the course, the bootcamp, they have gone on to apply for jobs and started jobs. So I could see like the priorities on their minds. It's always been to find senior engineers to sort of be mentors for them. It's almost unquestionable. Like they don't even stop to think about whether that's the right thing to do. It just feels right. It just feels like, you know, if you want to grow, okay, I've spent the last 3 to 6 months learning coding. Now, how do I level up? Well, I need to find a senior engineer in a company that, you know, allows for senior engineers to mentor junior engineers. But I did not really have that when I went into Altitude Labs, which is the company that I worked for. There were 2 engineers who had 2 years of experience ahead of me. I wouldn't consider them senior engineers, but they were more senior than I was. And they were based in Hong Kong while I was based in Singapore. And we didn't collaborate all that much. So to answer your question, what made me grow fast? I think it was the fact that I was just left to my own devices to swim. The co-founder, Justin, he often works in the Singapore office and he sits beside me and we talk, we go for meals together. Justin is also a good friend of Kai in a way, because Kai knows Justin's sister.
Justin's
Am I right?
co-founder is my childhood
co-founder,
friend's
yeah,
sister.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, okay, that connection. So, so yeah, he would tell me like, hey, we should work on this, we should work on that. And then I would just be like, okay, I'll try. And then I start to build it. And at least I had that space to go do that. And I just took it upon myself. I think people react in that kind of scenario in two ways. One, they crumble, like they get really stressed out. They just want to walk out. They complain that you don't give me enough support and so on. Then there's the other reaction, which is you just take it as a great opportunity to learn and experiment and have the license to fail while being paid. That's the way I see it. Like, I'm being paid to make mistakes. Okay, that's good enough for me. Even if I don't have support, it's fine. That's how I thought about it. I never told him that, of course, but yeah, that's how I thought about it. And I think that's the reason why I grew fast. In one year's time, I had to go through all kinds of problems. I remember having to dig into databases and like seeing how databases actually added stuff into the database. Like, you don't really think about that stuff until you come across a problem.
Sorry,
because
I'm not sure. By the way, I can learn.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, it's creepy.
Sorry, that was my Alexa device. Sorry. Yeah, I had to find like database locking issues, like to just do more research about that. So on a day-to-day basis, I just go into this really esoteric problems when they come up, and then when those things don't come up, when things are playing nice, I can build stuff. So I like the main thing that I built was a React drag and drop editor for constructing emails. So like you build a UI, people can click and drop stuff and blocks, and then they can edit the stuff. And when they click next, it's basically like a MailChimp. You know, at the end you can send the email out. So like that was maybe the most technically sophisticated thing that I had to build. Yeah, sorry, I went a bit off course there. Alexa distracted me.
Thanks for sharing. So it seems like, if I can just summarize very quickly, what happened is that you were thrown into the deep end, and then it's all about attitude to respond to those kind of challenges, right?
Yeah, thanks for summarizing it so nicely. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi Nick. Yeah, Veena here. I have a question that,
Hi.
so you were working as, part-time teaching assistant, right? So how it contributed to your professional career actually? Yeah, I mean, how much it was helpful in attending the interviews and what all things that we can learn in that role?
What are things that you can learn if you were to become a teaching assistant? Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, how it contributed to your professional career.
Yeah, and okay, that it does contribute in a way. Like, I would be lying if I told you it's not something that people think about. So like Justin, when he first came to our meet and greet, so like basically the reverse job fair where we show our wares, like we show our projects, and potential employers come see your stuff. Justin was there, he saw it, and then when we started talking, so he saw my code and he was like, okay, yeah, you're not too bad at coding. And then we started talking. One of the first things that I think struck his mind, he told me later, is that I was going to be a teaching assistant, because I told him I cannot start right away, right? Because I have to do the teaching assistant thing for another 3 months. And I think that there's certain weight to that, right? Like, okay, you have a cohort of 20 students and 1 or 2 people becomes the teaching assistant. You immediately just latch on to the idea that maybe you are the cream of the crop. Maybe you are a little bit better than the rest. It's definitely not true, because I was not the cream of the crop of my cohort. I can tell you that for sure. When you do coding exercises in the class, you can clearly tell who are the ones that really got the grasp of like how algorithms work, what is efficiency, what is space-time complexity, what is the most beautiful way to approach a problem. I am not that guy, but because I became a teaching assistant, they get that idea that maybe I'm pretty good in something. So
Rocket Academy is looking
sense.
for teaching assistants as well, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think it's tragic that people use these things to label and quickly judge people's abilities. I think it's always a bit faulty. The person with the most charisma will get the job quite often, which I really dislike. But yeah, I just wanted to be honest. I think that's the truth. It contributed in that sense. It's like a line on your resume that you can say like, hey, I was a TA. But please don't aim for that. Like, I don't think it's really that important. If you focus on your ability, it's also okay.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was there, perhaps to expand on Vina's question, was there like a certain point, like you feel like the teaching assistant actually like helped you to, in a way, consolidate what you learned for the past 3 months?
Yeah.
Like, did you feel that it helped you like become better at the basics?
Yeah, for sure. I think you already know the answer. You just want a confirmation, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It helps when you have to explain the concept to someone.
Hi, Nick. I'm Alvin from Batch 1.
Hey.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to Jeremy's question regarding your experience being in the deep end and like having to learn yourself. So as I think you feel the same way as like us coming from a bootcamp background where after we graduate, there are so many things that we still do not know. So what were your learning strategies when you were facing a problem? Is it to first look at the documentation? And if you don't understand the documentation, maybe like find videos or find like courses online to learn more in the content, or what strategies do you have?
Can you give me a scenario? I think that's a really good question, but to narrow it down a bit, is there a scenario that maybe you encountered?
Okay, yeah, maybe let's say you have a problem with React and you are looking at the React documentation and you are not sure what the code is doing. So would you so would your strategy be first to look at the documentation when you encounter a problem, or would you like Google Stack Overflow answers, or what would your approach be like?
Got it. I think I understand. So in such a situation, let's say I was building a React drag and drop editor for work, right? And then I face a problem. I couldn't, for some reason, the drag and drop just doesn't work. You can drag, but it doesn't drop. Let's just say like that's the scenario. I don't know if this is going to go sequentially, but one thing I can think of for sure is to do a lot of console logging to see what stuff is really happening. I feel like console logs are super underrated, but super, 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 super powerful. I still use it all the time, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's like the little thing that helps you as a programmer is to see during runtime what is really happening, what is the value. So that's one thing, super simple. But if you're talking about more like approach-wise, like I would basically try to use my intuition. So in that scenario, I would think of maybe one or two things that I suspect could be the problem and see if I already had the skills or the knowledge to find out whether, or ascertain whether that's the actual problem. Maybe I had an idea like, I think the state is wrong in this component. Then it's easy for me to find out, right? I can just put console logs. I can just open React Dev Tools. I can go and see the state and see it from there. So I would check those things first, the lowest lowest hanging fruits, the stuff that you can very, very easily ascertain. Then, so that's maybe the first step. And the second step would be, if I still don't know, I would maybe throw out questions into Google. Like React-D&D, which is the library that I use for drag and drop. That implemented in React. So React-D&D drop does not work. You know, like things that you won't be proud of to show other people that you're Googling, but sometimes you get the answer. Yeah. I think we all do that. So, and sometimes you'll find issues on the GitHub repo that is worded exactly what you're searching for, or Stack Overflow would come up with an answer. And if those two things don't give me results, and it's been, let's say, 1 hour or 2 hours, I would then phrase it. I would then write a question, phrase the question, and pose it to someone who is more experienced than I am, either at work or to my own peer group. And that step is actually some beauty, some magic happens, because while you're articulating that question for that person to see, you realize the holes that you haven't checked. And at the end of it, if you feel like you still need to ask that question, then your question is properly constructed already. And when you pass that question to that person is very much more likely to react positively to you, because it's clear that you have done your due diligence. So I think that's the part that maybe people don't really do. Even nowadays when I'm working, sometimes people will ask me something and they will ask me, hey Nick, do you have any reasons at the top of your head why this is happening? And then I would list a few things. But then later on, they ask me something else again, and I'm like, have you actually thought about this properly? Have you done your due diligence? And I get a bit annoyed, and I show them that I'm annoyed. And then in the future, they don't come back to me directly. They need to do step 1 and 2 first. Do step 1 and 2 first, then come to me. I'm step 3. Like we need to do that. We need to respect the time of the people who also learn the hard way, basically. So yeah, that's my answer. Do you want to also summarize? I think the last 2 people who asked questions summarized really well. So
sure, okay. So firstly, you'll try to do a lot of console logs to see where is the error happening or where's the problem. And if you still cannot find out through console logging, you will search online. You'll just Google the error or the problem you're facing. And if it comes to the point where Google doesn't solve your problem, then you would try to write out, construct a question that's directed towards your colleagues or your friends. And maybe along the way while constructing the question, you find out the loopholes that you did not check. So if by that time you realize those loopholes cause those problems, then you don't have to ask the question anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. There's a term for this. It's called the rubber ducking effect. So you're like talking to a rubber duck when you're constructing the question, and then the rubber duck solves your problem. The Stack Overflow had this April Fool's joke where they put a rubber duck at the bottom right-hand corner of one of the years, and it's like, click on it, and it will solve all your problems. It's AI. Click on it, and then it's asking you to type out your question, basically, and, and you get your own answer. So, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks for sharing your approach to solving problems. I think I will follow your approach from now on, because I think it's a good approach that I'll use. Yeah, so I'll try it from now on. Thank you.
Yeah, you can use it as a guide and then make it your own, right? Change certain parts. What works for you? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey Nick.
These are great questions. Yeah. Hi.
Hey, my name is Jikon. I just have a question for you. I happened to chance upon your blog post, and you mentioned that you work as a software engineer and live as a writer, and you explore and write about how to live a good and meaningful life. So I just want to ask, from your entire bootcamp to career to being a software engineer, what are some of the principles of your software engineering career that you think can be applied to living a good and meaningful life? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
So what are the principles of software engineering, right? Based on your experience, you think will contribute to living a good and meaningful life?
Yeah. Oof. Where's that coming from? Where's that question coming from?
I just wanted to amalgamate you being a writer and you being a software engineer, right? And how do you gel those two together to live a good and meaningful life? Yeah.
Ooh, wow. Oh my God, this is something I need to think about before I can give a proper answer, really. I don't think I can give you an eloquent answer to this one.
Sure. I mean, I can always check out your blog when you're ready. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But okay, can I answer that in a very touch and go way, but hopefully still add a bit of value?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like software engineering and writing is related in many, many ways. For example, if you want to write beautiful code that is not just performant, but also easy to understand, you got to rewrite it a few times. You got to write it first as a draft. It works. And then you got to refactor it, make it look a little bit better, make it a little bit easier to understand, make it have less lines of code, maybe make it make use of the fact that there are certain methods that are already built into the language that could do this a lot better, a lot faster. So like, that's exactly the same process that writers need to do, right? You need to first draft, then you need to edit it. And then you need to find certain words that can be replaced with something else that is clearer. That would be the equivalent of the method in the programming language. So I definitely see some parallels there between programming and writing. I just can't articulate it very clearly. So you have given me an idea for what to write in my blog next.
Yeah, I look forward to your next blog post.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. What have been some of your biggest setbacks along your software engineering journey, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, let's put some things into context. My software engineering journey is really quite short. I graduated from NUS 2015, did my startup 2016, and then started work 2016 year end, maybe 2017. So like in total, it's about 4 years of software engineering. Biggest setbacks. No, I don't think there's really any setbacks, because for even more context, right now I'm not doing pure software engineering, meaning I'm not one of the developer teams in our company right now. I'm not building the product. I'm building stuff that enables people to ensure our customers are well served, ensure that the product's user experience is good, to ensure that we scale up our support, customer service, customer support, 24/5 chat for our advertisers. So I'm not contributing directly to the product code base. That said, I do code every day, but I'm just building internal tools. I don't think there's really a setback, Kai, to answer your question. But I did have to grapple a little bit with identity. Like, do I want to keep on going down this path? For sure, I guarantee you, for every single one of us here, if you're gonna head down the path of software engineering, at some point, sooner than later, you are gonna ask yourself, do I wanna go deeper, or do I wanna spread broader? Meaning, do I wanna specialize and get so good at software engineering so that I can climb that ladder of becoming a senior software engineer, a staff software engineer, a principal engineer? Or am I gonna maybe apply that software engineering skill with my other skill set, like business, and be a product manager? Or apply that to my ability to communicate well with people, so then you maybe become a technical support engineer. So for me, I had to grapple with that more, and it's not a setback, it's just something that I had to constantly like talk to myself about, reflect upon, and then just make a decision and keep going. And so far, I don't regret any of it. Like I'm pretty happy that I get to now combine my communication skills, my leadership skills, with my software engineering skills to lead a small team of people who are helping to do what I just said just now, like the scaling of support, the building the internal tools, and so on. Yeah.
How did you then make that decision, like whether you wanted to continue to go deep as a software engineer or work more holistically as to build this support operations team?
I don't really know. I just tried. It's a bit of trial and error for me. I tried it and I didn't hate it, so I decided to just keep going for now.
Cool.
Hi, Jeremy here again. If I can build on Kai's earlier question, right? So perhaps in terms of setbacks, how about when you were applying for software engineering jobs? I mean, coming from a non-CS background, did you feel that some jobs were closed to you, or that you were disadvantaged compared to other competitors for the job?
Not at all. Not at all, and I don't say this to make you guys feel comfortable or happy about your predicament or your situation. I remember going for an interview at Palo IT. Do you guys know that company? It's in Singapore, consultancy. Yeah, I think they're in Bold Key or something. I went for the interview and someone actually, so the hiring manager actually asked me this question. So what why should we hire you instead of someone who has a computer science background? he asked me point blank, like that question. And I was like, how dare you? But I didn't say that. I just thought in my mind. I looked away, I thought about it. Okay, how can I turn this situation around? And I basically told him, look, if you get a computer science graduate, you're gonna get so much baggage. I'm a clean slate, I'm a sponge. I'm gonna join you. I have no opinions about what programming languages are good. I'm not prejudiced against any frameworks. I'm gonna come in and just see the problem. I'm gonna help you to solve the problem. A CS graduate is gonna tell you, no, this algorithm is bad. No, this is not as good. And so I was like painting a bad picture for the computer science grads and making myself look better. And I genuinely believed it. Like, I think programming bootcamps focus on practical things, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be 6 months. It would be 2 years or 3 years. It's condensing your CS degree into that few months so that you only learn the stuff that you can actually use to build stuff and solve problems. So that's a huge advantage. Who cares about the amount of time that you put in? The fact that you spend 3 months, Monday to Friday, learning by building, compared to CS grads, I wouldn't say you pale in comparison. I would say maybe you even have a leg up from them, because they are learning all the algorithms. I'm not kidding. Like the binary search trees, the depth first search. I mean, ask Kai. Kai can tell you.
We're doing it now. We're going through it now in the course. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, so that's why you have a 6 months course. I did a 3 months course, so it's a bit different. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Kind of related to that question, is there anything like, after you finished the bootcamp and you went to work, is there anything that you wish you could have taken or gotten out of the bootcamp that you felt that would have been helpful for your work that you didn't get from the bootcamp?
No, to be honest. I was pretty happy with it. I felt like it was focused on being practical. I mean, to give you an idea, we learned 4 modules, at least in general assembly, so it's different. Akira can tell you more if you want to know more. Module 1, you learn basics, introduction to basically HTML, CSS, and basic JavaScript, and you build a game at the end. Module 2, you learn Node. You're introduced to Node and Express. Module 3, you learn Rails. Module 4, you learn a front-end framework. So it's all super practical, and the whole time you're just working your ass off. 2 weeks to listen to lectures and learn stuff. 3rd week, you build the project, right? So it's like, it's already very dense. So at the end of it, I did feel like I was adequate enough to be dropped into any team to basically swim. I wouldn't like, swim like an Olympic athlete, but I would dog paddle and I would survive. Like, that's how I felt about how he prepared me. Yeah.
Hi Nick, Zeph here.
Hi.
What are some of the traits that you would look for in a junior software engineer or someone that you would want to hire?
Okay, you're asking me is it like because you think because of the fact that I actually do help hire some of the people in our company, or like is it just I don't know. This is coming from your position of thinking about what kind of traits you should upplay and make sure it's clear, right, when you interview. Okay, got it. I think I don't even need to think very much about this. The very first one, for sure, the top of my list is, can I tell whether you are going to be able to learn fast? I think that for me is the number one. But if you unpack that one thing, there are many traits that is necessary for that to happen. If you want to learn fast, it's not just intellect. I don't need you to be super smart, but maybe you need a baseline of, curiosity and not being too like slow to pick stuff up, like mentally. Then there's also the aspect of, are you humble enough to understand and to tell people that I don't know, but I'll learn. There's the other aspect of, do you know how to ask questions? Can you craft your questions well? Because if you want to learn, you need to ask good questions. So like, yeah, if you unpack that, there's a lot more. So the idea is I need to make sure that I sense you have it in you to learn quickly. Because when we hire, we always look internally to see if anyone wants to jump from another team into our team first. Only when that doesn't happen, then we open up the job opening. That's at least for the company that I work at. And by the time we open up the job opening, we are a little bit like, oh man, this is going to be a very long process. So it's like, when we open up the job opening, we want that person to come in and be set up for success and have good bones in a way. Like the person will be able to learn fast if we dedicate resources and just energy to help this person grow. But there are some people that just won't grow. You know, they're stubborn. They're not humble. They are very proud of themselves and so on. So yeah, for me, it's mainly that. Beyond that, I might test your skills on like your coding. Maybe just to see the way you think in terms of as a programmer. Like I give you something very simple like FizzBuzz, and I can already tell whether you're already thinking like a programmer. And if you're not, then maybe you're not ready for that job. Maybe you should try for a different job. That's same in software engineering, but maybe just like a more junior role. That's how I think about it. Yeah.
Thanks so much for your insights.
Yeah, no problem.
Michelle or Sam, did you guys have any questions? I want to make sure you guys get a chance to ask.
I'm still kind of wrapping around what the job of a service operations engineer is, and because I think I come from like a product design background, and I work very closely with front-end engineers, and I'm quite familiar with who are like the best front-end, what the best front-end engineers I've worked are like, and what I like to learn to be more like them. Could you tell us more about like, you know, this like this engineering track that you're on, and how, like, you know, you said it's something like you code every day, but it's also not like you're a full stack engineer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can I ask you also a question then just to narrow it down a little bit? Mm-hmm. So how is this question related to the UI or the front end engineers that you talked about, or product
I'm just
design?
like not familiar at all. Like just giving you some context of my background. Like I'm more familiar with working closely with front end engineers, but I don't know anything about like service operations or what that entails as an engineer.
Yeah. Okay. Kai, you're putting this up publicly, right? Like it's gonna be shared with the world. Okay. Good. Then I will just find this snippet and share it with my colleagues and my boss, not boss, but like my team lead, and tell him like, hey, nobody understands service operations engineer. Okay.
Oh, you're gonna say once, yes, we'll tell everyone, yes.
Nobody understands service operations engineer. It's a title that we made up in this company. Ask anyone in the industry and no one will understand it. And so I don't blame you at all. So to answer your question, we sit between the customer team and the product team, to give you a bit of an idea. And you can already start thinking about the kinds of problems that we try to solve. So what kind of problems does exist between the space of product team and customer team? So customer team meaning the salespeople and the customer success managers, right? The people who actually have, so our company we have clients, and the clients are managed by CSMs, or customer success managers. So that's customer team. Product team is comprising of product managers, product designers, as well as the developers, right? So the space in between, it's product feedback, right? The customer teams will be talking to the customers. They will know the pain points they have on a day-to-day basis. Oh my God, this product is so buggy. This part is horrible. Like this button should be there. Or like, I don't understand why I have to click 3 times to get this one thing done. Or like, is this even possible? Oh, it's possible? Wait, how come it's not obvious to me in the first place? Or like, I wish this was a feature in the product. So these are all the things that the customer teams always have to grapple with. And they will want to translate that to the product team. And they do, they go directly. But when they do go directly, things get lost in translation. Why? Developers they think in a certain way. Developers don't necessarily understand the pains that the customers face on a day-to-day basis. So our team bridges the gap. We become the translators. That's number one. We also become the enablers. So we build tools that enable customer teams to give feedback in a way that is easily tracked, that is easily acted upon, that is in a language that the product and the developer team understands, that is placed into context of the product roadmap that the customer teams might not understand or know about. That's kind of what we do in a nutshell. Yeah.
I think so much.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
If you can think of a better name.
I think we have something very similar at the company I'm working at, but it's just like we just don't call it that thing. It's just like we just have like a squad that's like, you know, doing like customer relations.
Customer relations. Okay, yeah. I'm in the process of trying to rename the team. So if you have ideas, please tell me.
Awesome.
Yeah. So actually, I would like to summarize what you said, Nick. Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe to put it in more layman terms, your team focuses on creating internal tools which facilitate communication between the sales team and the product team. Is that right? So for example, the product that you mentioned about creating a platform for the sales team to create to give feedback to the product team, and the product team can use that platform to receive that feedback. So is that one of the internal tools that your team has built?
That is one of the internal tools that we have built, yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there are other things as well. So yeah, I did not catch those things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's because there's like at least 20 different things. There are, there's at least 20 different things, and in this year, I imagine we will add 5 more things or 10 more things. You know, like that's the nature of our team, which is hard to manage really if you think about it. A developer team is super clear on their mandate. Okay, we are the team that is responsible for feed processing. So we built a feed processor and we maintain it, and it's super easy to use, right? That's their mandate. For us, it's like all sorts of hairy problems that could come up from informational asymmetry, you know? So there's a lot of tools. So that was one example. Other examples are like scripts, one-off scripts that we write. For example, we have a knowledge base. How do we check that all the links in the knowledge base articles are not outdated or pointing to a broken link? Because if it's pointing to a broken link, it means that people are not able to help themselves well, and it also looks very unprofessional. So you just write a script that basically recurringly pings every single page, every single link, and clicks on them and opens them and sees if they break. Right? If the ones that break, you just report them, and then someone goes and fixes them, right? Goes and fixes them. So that's one more script. We have to ensure that people book support. So we are also the team that ensures that we scale up support, right? I mentioned earlier. So to do that, we can either go check people's calendars one by one and say, hey, you haven't really booked support this time, or we can build some kind of automation that will do a lot of the heavy lifting. So we have a tool that basically is called the support booker, and it goes around checking everyone's calendars, pulling it from Google Calendar API, checking against what their expected cadence is, which is stored in the employee database, which is another API. And then we would then send post requests into Slack API to then ping these people to say, hey, we noticed you haven't done your support recently. Please do it. So it's that sort of thing. That's another one. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you a flavor. We have another one also, which is when customers come into support, they report a bug, we file a bug ticket. How do we link that chat to the bug ticket? Bug ticket is in Jira. Jira is the platform that we have. Intercom is another platform that we use, which is for support chats. How do we link these two platforms together? Well, we wrote some automation. It's a cron job, meaning that it runs on a periodic basis. and it goes around checking on an hour-to-hour basis if a certain Jira URL is mentioned in one of the chats. If it is, link it to the Jira somehow, put it in one of the fields. And then when the product team or the development team responsible for that product area fixes the problem or chooses not to fix it because it's by design, they change it, and we have an automation that picks it up and says, lets you review the message to send to the customer. And by clicking one button, you send that message to the customer. Not just one customer, but all the customers that are affected by that one bug. So that sort of work.
Yeah, for the last example that you mentioned, right? Is the sales team involved in it or just the product team?
Involved in informing the
or who uses that?
solution.
Yeah, who uses that platform? Is it more of the product team, or is it both the sales and product team? Because I feel that it's only the product team that will use that.
Yeah, you're right. It is. So the users in this case would be developers as well as our team, not the CSMs or the salespeople.
Right.
But it concerns them, right? Because you need to answer to them. You need them to know that, guys, like, hi CSMs, we got this taken care of. Like, I know your customer is facing this problem. Why? I can check Jira, right? It's linked to your customer. And don't worry, because the moment the developers have already marked it as done, our automation picks it up and we would click a button and send it to your customers. So the customers don't have, like, the CSMs don't do anything, but we sort of do it on their behalf in this sense, and they can trust the process because our team takes care of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm? Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks, Nick. Does anyone have any other questions for Nick?
We have time.
Michelle,
we have this until we have 10 more minutes, right?
Mm-hmm. Michelle, want to make sure you get a chance to ask any questions.
Oh, no, I'm good, thanks.
All right. Okay.
Others have pretty much covered all the questions.
Okay. Nick, I have a question. Maybe also a somewhat summarizing wrap-up question, which is, what were your biggest takeaways from your bootcamp experience? And what advice would you give to all the aspiring software engineers here who are currently going through a bootcamp themselves?
Right. Biggest takeaway and advice.
Summary advice, yeah.
Right. What did I say when you asked me this question the last time we had this session?
Well, I have to go back. I have to go back. And,
yeah. I don't know what the biggest takeaway is. But I'll just go with my gut, and I would say maybe the biggest takeaway is that you should use the bootcamp to learn to trust your ability to learn. So let me just say that again, because it's a bit of a double. You should use the bootcamp to learn to trust yourself that you're able to learn. Like the bootcamp, I don't see the bootcamp as really the place that is supposed to teach me everything about programming so that I can be dropped in and become like this amazing engineer. No, I see it as a place that I'm given sort of the training wheels program to understand the main concepts, maybe 20% of the concepts that give you 80% of the value, and then go on from there. Like, and to go on from there to become really good at your work, you have to trust that you can learn outside of the bootcamp after you're done with it. That's, for me, yeah, what my biggest takeaway is that I went to the bootcamp and I learned that I can learn programming on my own. That's maybe the biggest takeaway, yeah. And then advice is, advice is that maybe all advice is bullshit and kind of take them with take them with a pinch of salt. Take them with a pinch of salt because your context is different, really. You know, my desire is to be here, and that's why I chose to work at this company in the first place. So really, it's dependent on your context. I don't think we should discount that. Most people will tell you other stuff, but I'll tell you, like, know yourself, what your situation is, what your goals are, and then you know, like, you are already in a very good place because you have gone through this programming bootcamp. You already are the top 1 to 2% of the world in terms of technical literacy by the time you're done, and then just do something with it, right? You will definitely want to do something with it. Yeah. I hope that's not too much of a downer or an upsetting advice.
No, I mean, that basically what I'm taking away from that is that the possibilities are endless. And so everybody has their own unique contribution that they're going to make, and everybody really has a very unique and powerful skill set. And so it's up to the individual to decide what they want to do with that, right?
Exactly. Don't listen to someone telling you need to do it this way or that way.
Awesome. I think we'll wrap up there. Thanks so much, Nick, for being with us today. That was
It's a
really
pleasure.
helpful, and yeah, I think everybody got a lot out of this experience. So thanks so much for being with us today.
No problem.
Awesome.
Are those the AirPods?
Yes.
By the way.
Yes, these are the
Wow.
AirPods Mac. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Treated myself.
Ever the Apple fanboy.
Yes. Oh, Nick knows. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks so much, Nick. We'll stick around in case anybody has other questions. If not, we will wrap up the session here. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I wish you all the best, guys.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.